So welcome to today's TxDLA Keep Connecting Lunchtime webinar series, and it's Keep Connecting in Times of Crisis, sponsored by i2i Technologies. So today's topic is we have a great panel discussion lined up for you, and the topic's going to be lessons learned during the 2020 pandemic. So again, if you're connecting in, please let us know something that you have learned. So welcome, I'm Roxanne Glauser, and I'm Director of Marketing and Learning for i2i Technologies, and I specialize in distance learning and video communication. I've worked directly with students, worked with teachers in K-12, professors and instructors in higher ed, and also in government and business, basically helping learners and leaders use video communications effectively. And so the two prongs that, especially these past 3 weeks, that we've been working with is making sure people understand their technology and how the technology technically works, but more important than that, creating comfort for your learners and users that will be using that technology and how to do that effectively. So joining us today on the chat, we have Mr. Ken the Grinch Khan, who, as many of you know him as former president of both Texas Distance Learning Association and the United States Distance Learning Association, and additional leadership roles throughout the state and nation in video communication and distance learning. And he says he's always been a video advocate, but sometimes people thought it was kind of a bullying voice when he was very passionate. So this is his Grinch face and his lesson that he's learned in the past 3 months. He said his little heart has grown 3 sizes from seeing all the cameras turned on. And so I'd also like to turn it over to Rhonda to introduce herself.
So I'm Rhonda Blackburn. I am a past president of TxDLA, so I'm still on the board as well. It's interesting because since this is really a board panel, I will be helping with the facilitation, but there's going to be a lot of people that will be helping with facilitation today. But I am also USDLA president. Roxanne never changed that. As of last week, I became the president of USDLA, and so everyone that's TxDLA is also a member of USDLA, which is so exciting. But to kind of go with, what I love is I love learning, and being on these webinars have been so exciting to be able to learn something every single time I'm on it, and learning from the people around me. So I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. And just a brief introduction for our i2i Technologies. We're a video communication and collaboration company focused on helping solve challenges with solutions that are simple, flexible, and dependable. So currently we have been working so much the past few months with organizations as they are really transforming many of their face-to-face interactions or events into blended, hybrid, or virtual learning events, and always focusing again on knowing what technologies you have and how to prepare your staff, your people to do that effectively. And so just a reminder, those of you that are on the stream, just a quick orientation to what you'll be seeing there. You'll see the slides currently, but then when we move to conversation, you'll see everyone's video, and you'll be able to enter your questions or comments in the chat, and then we'll have those brought into the conversation. So again, to direct you back to the Texas Distance Learning website with the Keep Connecting, the resources there are amazing. Lisa's done a fantastic job of curating and collecting resources mentioned in each of the webinars. There are also links to all the TxDLA partners. And then as you scroll down, you'll see recording links. So the recordings to each of the webinars are free for 2 weeks. And then after that, it is a TxDLA membership perk, and TxDLA memberships are only $35 a year, and so all of that content that's available, it is well worth that. So what I'd like to do at this time is I'm going to hand it over to Charlene, who will introduce the panel and get us started with today's conversation. So Charlene, take it away.
Thank you, Roxanne. Hello, everybody. And I'm going to ask the panelists to mute your mics. Some of the attendees are saying the sound is going in and out. So if you'll mute your mics until it's time for you to speak, I think that may help with the sound. So I am Charlene Stubblefield, President-elect of TxDLA. Has that shifted yet? Am I now president? Or does that start in June? Who knows? But my title is President-elect of TxDLA. On the call, we have Lisa Brown. She's Secretary of Texas Distance Learning. Rhonda has already introduced herself. She is the corporate/private sector director of TxDLA. We have Mark Workman. He is member at large TxDLA. We have Jerry, you know, I've never gotten your last name right, so I'm not even going to butcher it.
Okay, Pedraza.
Pedraza. He's
Yeah,
our parliamentarian. Thank you. And then we have Jenell Paul. She's our government, military, nonprofit director. Welcome. Today's webinar will be a very conversational. We're just going to kind of chat about what lessons we've learned. I've already seen people in the chat kind of talking about the stress of it all, learning to be kind to people. Ditto. So at this point, one of the first things we want to do as a part of the panel, we're going to tell you things that we've learned over this time. You know, we've heard about people learning piano, and we talked, if you came in earlier, you heard us talking about baking bread. I'll give each panelist an opportunity. What I've learned to do is fish. I used to hate the worms and the squiggly things and putting it on the hook. I thought it was just the grossest thing. But what I've learned to do over this pandemic, matter of fact, last night, sunset, my husband, my daughter, and I, we were out there fishing. It is just the most peaceful, calming thing. It pulls you away from the computer. It was just awesome. So panelists, what have you learned to do since this pandemic started?
Well, I have, this is Jerry. I have learned how to grill better because I used to burn the meat. So now I had more time to practice, and I got a new grill, and I am using it like every week, a couple of times a week. So that's my thing right now, grilling.
What you've learned? Nope.
Rhonda, who's going next? Maybe you should just pick people.
Rhonda, talk about what your daughter has learned because, oh, no, go ahead, Jenell, go ahead.
Oh, for me, I've learned that plan B is real and you should have a contingency. And also that deployment of technology as it relates to my job, it does not have to go in the pristine way that we think it does. We deploy teams immediately. And as an agency, which is one of the largest agencies now, Health and Human Services, we deploy teams and people have figured this thing out and always thinking that you have to have a certain training and pattern that it has to follow. Let me tell you, when people have a need, they will figure it out. So that's been really helpful. And then I've also noticed that I probably am not as domesticated, although my husband thinks I do a great job. I hate cooking. But yeah, that's it. And also to be grateful for whatever my circumstance is.
Rhonda, you want to jump in?
Yeah, so I've learned, my daughter is in a dual language program, so I've learned a lot more Spanish since we had to translate everything as we were finishing up her school. But it's been fun to see her grow here at home. She has done piano, voice, jazz, tap, and ballet all virtually. And you know, and it's kind of been fun. I mean, I'm not in the room with her when she usually does all that stuff, so it's kind of been fun to see that. But my husband has started cooking a lot more, which is kind of scary at times, but good at times. And we just got a swim spa, so we're going to start getting out there and swimming since we can't go to the gym. So those are our fun things that we've been doing.
Cool. Jerry or Mark, do you have anything? Lisa? Okay, Lisa, you can go next.
Sure. Okay, so during this time, I'll tell you what, I have learned more about Zoom than I ever knew was possible. It's kind of interesting that I used Zoom before the pandemic. I used it this one little narrow way. We kind of use it for so many uses, everything from virtual meetings to virtual graduation celebrations. I really learned a lot of kind of hidden functionality and some of the hidden gems with Zoom. And what's interesting, one of the things that I learned too is, especially in regard to virtual events, practice doesn't always make perfect. So you can run, you can plan, but with any virtual event, I learned that still have, I guess you could say, outlier people, right? People always make it interesting and exciting within the event. They don't act in ways that you expect to. And then I learned that no matter how much you practice the technology, it may not work exactly the same way you expect it to as you did practice. So especially the more people that you have interacting with the technology, the more settings, the more plugins, and for example, putting a stream adds an additional layer of complication. So with everything, you really have to be flexible and adapt and kind of keep in mind that what are we here for, and we're here for the people and to use the technology with the people. So that's kind of some of the interesting things that I've learned about this experience. And on a personal level, if you don't use tomatoes, your salsa will be pink. So that's the other thing from a personal level I learned. Lots of cooking.
Awesome.
I guess one of the important things with Zoom was to witness the evolution of several issues with Zoom, like the evolution of the security within the platform, that there were new features released like every week, and then you have to be using it and helping people. That way you can be more proactive and tell instructors, hey, you know what, you always have to have a password now, or you need to help, you need to ask students to register. So give them all the possible strategies they could use, like to take attendance, like to make their sessions more secure. So it was really good learning how security within that platform was strengthened and criticized as well, like by the media and others. But it was a good learning experience, I would say. And now, like Lisa said, it's good to be like now experts in the tool, because Zoom, it's a very complex tool, but it's also very easy to use. But in the back end, it has tons of options. So depending the faculty needs, it is important for the consulting person or the designer to be able to know all the tools or all the tiny things so that you can be able to recommend a strategy. That's one of the things I learned as well.
Mark, you want to chime in?
Sure. Well, it's been an interesting time. Having sold my house in Kerrville and moving to Bryan, I've spent some time building an air-conditioned kennel room out in the shop. So that's now functional. And you'll notice beside me, I have learned to keep my guitar handy, because as people experiment with these new technologies, when we have a meeting, there's typically 10 to 15 minutes of people going, can you hear me now? Can you see me? What's this button for? Oh, by the way, could somebody mute their mic, their feedback, and on? So while they're doing that, I picked up the guitar, and if you've ever seen the movie Wayne's World, they have a list of songs that are banned in guitar stores. So I take the opportunity to go through and learn some of those songs while everybody's taking care of gee, what does this button do type things, or where's so-and-so, they are from the meeting. So yeah, it's been interesting. The question is, can we ever return to where we were? Will things ever be the same? Because I'm not sure people want to do everything the same anymore.
I don't think we'll go back. Let's go with that conversation right there. Do you guys think we will return where we were? And Mark, by the way, your sound is a little delayed, maybe your connection, but do you guys think that we'll ever return? Before some of you joined on, different ones of us were talking about what the pandemic has done to our places of worship. And I doubted that we'll go back to non-Facebook Live worship. I think that's going to continue even though there'll be more people in the building. Do you think as far as higher education or whatever your institution may be, will we go back to things before this where there's less technology use? What are your thoughts?
I think we're going to go back, but we will also be more prepared in the future for things. And I think...
Mark, turn your camera back on. Jerry, your camera's on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So I was saying, I think we'll go back to normal, but we will all be more prepared and cognizant of things that could happen. So there will always be a backup. And I think thanks to these, like our profession in instructional design and technology has just received an upgrade in value, I would say, because now people value more what we do. It is not just like, hey, so what is it that you do for the school? Now everybody knows. Yeah, because everybody had to use us in some kind of way, right? Come with us or receive our support in some kind of way. So, but I think it will go back to normal with always having these tools in the back of everybody's mind.
So I'm hoping that it doesn't go back to 100% normal. I'm hoping we take this opportunity to grow. One of the things that I've always found is that when I started to work with a faculty member that never taught online, and they started teaching online, but they also taught face-to-face, their face-to-face course also got better because there were things that they had to think about when it came to online that they never really thought about when they were face-to-face. And then all of a sudden it was like, I now know. So what I'm hoping is that people take out of this that there are different ways to teach and different ways to do it, and how can we make it better instead of just kind of, okay, we've done that, yes, we can do it again, but now I'm going to go back to where I was. And so I'm hoping that we take this opportunity to take all of our learning further, right, especially in the education world.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is we've changed an incredible amount in such a short time already. And so I see my paradigm is things are always changing anyway. They're changing before. I just think the speed of change that we've recently birthed has been an incredible amount. I foresee that things will keep changing, and some of these things will be very great and positive things. For example, the amount of access, people will realize now technology really is a way we can get more access beyond physical space and beyond a physical building, really connect and reach out to people. So I see where things will keep changing. I think some of these things will be for the better, and that we use technology to connect. And we'll realize how important it is to bring access to everyone. Everyone needs to be able to access technology and to be able to do things in a distance, and it can be a very positive and beneficial format. And I think too we're seeing is people are really recognizing that it's important to use technology to reach out to people and to connect to people. And I think all along that the aspect I've learned is that I got to keep putting people first and got to keep remembering, okay, what is the purpose of sensation? What is the purpose of online education? Is to make sure that our students will instill knowledge and even better participants in society, and that's key moving forward.
Okay. And I'm looking in the chat, noticing a lot of people are just talking about, I think Ken made this profound statement saying, I think some folks will go back and this should be done carefully, with considerations. I also see Gay saying that faculty appreciate DE. So let's switch to that. I have not gotten so many thank yous. And even when we have all of the instructional designers in my department ended up with cell phones so that we could, respond because the software for phones wasn't quite working quick enough. So we ended up with cell phones. And even though my cell number is in my email signature, every time a faculty called, you would have thought they were calling my personal phone because they would always say, I'm so sorry to bother you. I know you're busy. I thought that would last for so long, but it still continues today. This morning, got a call from a faculty and they're just always really this politeness. I'm so sorry to bother you. Can I ask a question really quickly? I think another thing that's occurred is I'm on the LTAC with Higher Education Coordinating Board. LTAC stands for Learning Technology Council. The commissioner was on there talking, and then also I deal with the Dr. Homark with the Texas A&M system. He's a vice chancellor. Both of them talked about their board meetings, and they both referred to that the higher ups are now speaking distance learning language. They actually use words like virtual and distance. They use words like instructional designer, and they actually know what that means. Just different things like that, where both sets of people, they came back saying, we recognize you're the experts. We know that if it were not for you guys, we couldn't have gone online so quickly. And then they turn around, hey, what can we do next? How can we support you? That's different. That's very, very different. I don't think that that's going to change. I think this, we're on the radar of leadership. Now when we're creating these pandemic plans, we're going to be brought to the table as far as discussing, what needs to happen, what's effective. Speaking of that, let's segue into this new term called high flex. High flex is the combination of hybrid, and hybrid is where you're teaching a class. Part of it is face-to-face and part of it is different. And then when you add the flex on the end, what it's supposed to be is this flexible students choosing when to attend class and when not. I hope I did not butcher that definition. But let's talk about kind of what are your thoughts of this high flex? Even thinking about it as we're going into the fall, figuring out how do we do social distancing once we return to, the possibility of students being back on campus. So what are your thoughts about high flex?
This is
I
Jenell.
think there's a lot of confusion because our faculty don't know what it is, and until it's very, very thoroughly explained, they aren't going to know. The idea was to roll out HighFlex for this fall. And as you said, with social distancing, it can't actually meet that need without some other things in place. Because with the HighFlex, if a student wants to go to a face-to-face meeting, they can. If they want to watch it online, they can. But if we're limiting our physical classrooms to 10 students per room, they can't come when they want. So they're going to have to be assigned either a Monday or a Tuesday, depending on what their course schedule is. So I would say if we're doing HighFlex, it'll have to be a very modified HighFlex.
So one of the things I am just responding to the other question and kind of segueing back is that in government and in nonprofits, one of the things is high touch, high tech for us. Oftentimes people thought that you could only get a certain experience by being in the classroom. So as far as sustainability, long-term and going back, I think, no, we're changed. We're already talking about how our footprints as far as office space will be different as a result of this. We have one area that is already going 50%. They have proposed to cut in the office. So when we look at sustainability and the change that this has brought about, and we talk about high flex as it relates to the work environment, we are now having to offer micro-learning to meet people right where they are and give them what they need. And then we're coming right back and doing modified classes that were normally 8 hours. Now we are condensing those to like 90-minute sessions, giving them just what they need. So you've got this extreme compact thing followed by a little expansion and then still offering the 8-hour as well and allowing them to still do the classroom component. And then we have what we call probably more of the high flex in the sense of a blended approach where they actually can go to something that's online that's an hour or so and then come back and do a actual engagement with an instructor online, as we call it, a plus activity. So we're having to have more flavors of, of trainings for employees. So I think in the work environment, that's how we are beginning to look at that in relation to how we do business.
One of the first things, and I know, apologies to those of you on the webinar participating. They're saying they can hear every word sometimes, so we'll make sure that we're muting. Apologies for the sound. But some of the things that as we meet to talk about the high flex, the best way for us is to do just what Mark and Jenell just did. You went through what are the different scenarios, because there are an endless number of scenarios that you can come up with for high flex, and there's a way to handle it. I think we're experts in understanding how to handle it, but what are the top ways that are floating up according to your institution? Because one institution may do it one way and another institution may focus on another way, but this is definitely a term that is now coming up, this high flex. How do you handle it? How do you do it? And I agree with Mark 100%. The flexibility is really missing. And when they started talking about it, I go, this is hybrid. This is not high flex, but leave it in there because, and I think what it will end up saying is modified high flex, where someone was saying maybe students A to K come on this day and A to Z, but we're still taking a flexibility away. And what they said, well, it's still flexible. The student doesn't have to come, but we have to herd them onto which day they can come. So that's where the flexibility is. I can show up if I need this extra help or not. So, but this is a new term. Some people are just now hearing about it. Once you hear the definition and you've been in distance learning for a moment, you're like, okay, yes, this is familiar. We've done this. And I think Ken was saying in the chat, it's an old school thing. It really, really is. It's been around for quite a while. So are there any other new terms that have floated up to the top since we've been in the pandemic? These words, I'll tell you a word, a phrase that has bugged me, but everybody says it. They say, stay safe. Have you noticed that being said all the time? Where did that come from? Why are we saying it as this? It's almost a herd mentality or group mentality. Everybody says stay safe. Check out people's signatures on their emails. They don't say regards anymore. They say stay safe. Safe. What are some technology things like that we do now that wasn't, this wasn't here before? You didn't normally stay safe, or we weren't discussing high flex, or to a certain degree, we were saying Zoom or WebEx, but now Zoom seems to be I wish I would have bought stock in Zoom. Anyway, side effect. But what are some of these other things that have floated to the top as far as terms since this pandemic has, been going on? Or have you noticed any others?
Yeah, so one of the things, the last Tuesday, Amanda Robach was doing the session, and one of the things that she brought up was this whole idea of that we shouldn't be social distancing, we should be physical distancing. And I wish we would change our our wording around that, because I think that social is still important. We still need to figure out how, I mean, I have a 9-year-old. She still needs to be connected to her friends, and when she was on school, her teachers and things. But keeping that physical distance from someone. So that's one term. Yeah, we never heard of the word social distancing until this came up. But I wish we would have never started using that term. I wish we would have used physical distancing, just because mentally it's so different and people take it differently. So
I think you're right. You're right. Yeah, I think some of these terms just come out like super quickly, made by a combination of things, and they are not well thought. And I agree that the distancing should not be social, but it's just physical, right? Because one thing that I see on the grow are like Zoom happy hours, Fridays after work. Those things are growing so we don't lose contact, that social component with the colleagues, right? And I think one of the main problems that this pandemic has struck is that one of the complaints that students have the most that I have heard is they have lost this interaction or these capability of interacting with their professors and with their peers. And if the class is not planned to be online, those interactions might still be missing, right? Because they still have these Zoom sessions, but if these sessions are not well prepared for interaction and they're just like one way, it's almost the same as just watching a video. So that's where instructional design comes in. And now people are beginning to understand that we can help them chunk their content into pieces and add those interactions that otherwise would be missing. So in my experience, the professors that we were working with already, that we were like in the middle of helping them create their online courses or transition to online, they said their classes were awesome. I mean, their students, we received a lot of compliments from those because when they transitioned quickly, most of the material was already ready to go in online mode. So those were like very good. We received compliments that they were the best classes that they have taken, even if they were online. And somebody mentioned it a little while ago that thinking for online classes helps faculty have a different mindset about their classes and have them better prepared ahead of time. Like their schedules are more defined, their activities are more planned, therefore the structure of the course is easier to follow for the students. So I think that yes, those things might change how we think about on face-to-face classes in the future.
Excellent points, Jerry, for sure. Excellent points. In the chat, some people are saying, I was asking a question about what does stay safe mean. Somebody says, wash your hands for 20 seconds, stay 6 feet away. That's what stay safe means. Okay, I get it. That's a good narrow down of what it means. You notice that there was possibly an assumption that we focused so much on getting faculty prepared that students were really, really nervous about online. We had our first orientation, didn't think we needed it. Provost kind of made us kind of poke us, just do it. We had so many students who joined a webinar about the learning management system, which we thought they didn't need the help, but they did. The biggest thing that they were most concerned from doing the webinar was they were concerned about their instructors. They were concerned that the instructors would not be okay with technology. And that was just amazing to me. And basically what we told them, it's okay, be patient with your instructor. We're here to help them so they'll be okay. And if you are concerned, send us an email and we can help them. But they really were concerned about the faculty. And I was like really, really surprised by the empathy that the students had for the faculty. And that lets you know, possibly no matter what, students go to class, a lot of times we would say, I don't like this faculty, my instructor did this or that. But when it came down to it, they were still very concerned about faculty plus technology many of times. Have you seen any other issues like that that came up or have come up as far as we social distance? And I want to chime in with this also. Kim brought this up in the beginning. We've been doing these webinars for 11 weeks. We've calculated with Jenell about March 18th, I think, or March 8th was when this thing really started. And so we've done 21 webinars. But with that said, we've even shifted. I thought about, why didn't we do this already? We have all these technologies. Why weren't we already doing these webinars, Rhonda? But this pushed us to this next level of it. And it's definitely something we're going to continue. It's something where we can go back to some past conversations while we're in the midst of it to get these fresh thoughts. But what else do you guys see as far as just new terms or new things that have been going on since the pandemic started?
I mean, I think that there have been, people have thought of different ways of interacting, which is really kind of creative. I mean, I think we brought up, the happy hours all the time, but it's not just that. It's, these virtual book clubs that have just popped up everywhere. So people are reading more. But also, because people aren't able to get together with people and go to school or go to work or whatever it is, they started getting outside. So if you go to any Walmarts or Targets or academies or wherever, you won't see a bike, right? People are getting out and doing things that they may have never done before or not often because they either didn't have time and it seems like things have kind of slowed down a little bit. People yes, we're all still busy, but I know that with my family, we're not driving everywhere all the time, getting my daughter everywhere. We're able to do it here, and then in the evenings, we have our evenings back. I mean, we actually started, making dinner and sitting down as a family. And I mean, there are things that I think people have changed the way they do things because of this. And it's not all bad, right? It's some really cool, really good things. People are going on family walks. They're playing family game night and, things like that, yes, people have done before. It's not anything new, but you're seeing more and more people wanting to do something that they either haven't done in a long time or something. So that's one of the things that I've noticed with this.
I think the key point here is what people value, right? Where do you place the value of things? I think it has shifted. Things that you didn't consider a lot of value now are being valued most, like those walks and time to do other activities. And in the online world, I think one thing that has acquired value is online proctoring. Before, there was not a lot of concern of those things. But every student has to be evaluated and people start thinking about different ways to assess. It doesn't need to be an exam to reduce the amount of proctoring needed. So people start about thinking projects or different activities or peer assignments or other type of things that could facilitate the students being able to show that they learn the content, that they met the objectives. So all of these things I think have shifted, like the values of things, like Rhonda was saying, and also some of the online world things where value was placed, I think it also has been shifting.
Definitely. Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, thanks. Sorry about that. I had to jump in and jump out to get my audio all set. So can y'all hear me okay?
We
Okay,
can.
good. Good, thanks. So one of the things that I've noticed a really great positive benefit from is I've noticed more community in some sense. So for example, over at the Bush School of Government and Public Service, when we went to move all our courses online, I was really amazed with how much I would get faculty who said, hey, I know you're here to help me and help me get my courses online, but I don't want to be too much of a bother. And they would actually, I'd have to really get them to come to me because they were concerned about our staff workload, and which I thought was really touching. One of the things we did was we did ask for faculty expert help. So we had some faculty who are already using courses online, doing a great job. And so we highlighted them and their expertise. And so they created a network of helping each other, which really helped out the greater Bush School team. And one of the things that we also happened, we had staff from outside of our design area and extended education area, staff at the Bush School who were volunteering to help faculty get online. And so one of the things that we did was we embraced that. And so we said, yeah, sure, the more hands on deck, the better. We have to work as a community and really work together to get all these courses online. So I think one of the huge benefits was seeing that community, we're all in this together, coming together and kind of fostering that. Typically we like to do things ourselves, but you have to really open up and be willing to accept help to get the job done. And so that was a huge benefit. And I've seen it even out in the greater community as well, even, excuse me, here in the Bryan College Station area and in other areas, people coming together to help each other, raising money through virtual runs, helping in their community, giving to food banks. And I think that is so crucial and so important. And seeing that community, even among Texas Distance Learning Association, how we're giving the Keep Connecting webinars. That's something that I definitely want to see continue, and I hope to see moving forward from everyone is this teamwork, collaborative effort, and I think it's been a great benefit.
I agree. And looking on the chat, some people have even talked about the community effort, even with graduations, where I'm not sure who said it, but they talked about, I think it was Carly, talked about the graduation parade in their neighborhood. And it didn't matter if it was public or private schools, but this feeling of community, even in that, if you're in one of the smaller Texas towns, maybe you experience, I'm closer to Waller, Texas does things like this, but to see it have this expanded feeling, there are neighborhoods, and we found this out, I want to say during Hurricane Harvey, when things got really, really bad, there were faculty on campus who said, one of my neighbors across the street came and helped me board up my windows, or, what he said, I never talked to him before. I never had a conversation with him. So this is that feeling of this expanded neighborhood. I love the videos where you see people out on their driveways and having a concert and different things like that. You're getting to know your neighbors, and whether it's how we're doing it electronically or whether it is this physical distancing amongst us, it's really this cool feeling. It definitely makes you feel good. It has this, I think even before this, it's this mindset of just so much negative, but the negative now is almost eliminated by all of this positive things that we're seeing in our communities, in our neighborhoods. Jenell was mentioning, Jenell, go ahead. You can chime right in right there.
So one of the things that I know for us working with Health and Human Services and as a state agency and representing nonprofits was our response to COVID-19. That was essential. And getting direct service providers notified of new requirements. That was, distance learning was our only way to make sure this was at their fingertips for people who work 24/7 at different shifts. I mean, you just can't send instructors out and then the risk of sending instructors out. And so with that became we highlighted the fact that distance learning has a place in government and in nonprofits. And then also with that became that community sense of, like what you were saying, our subject matter experts, all hands on deck. And I think, Lisa, you're very right. You have to be willing to accept that help, but also teach people how to fish, because that was a huge piece of it too, is some of them didn't know. And it was like, you know what, either pay me now or pay me later. So let's teach y'all right now, even though it's a crash course, and we can go back, I mean, just due to the timing, we can go back and we can retrofit if we need to, but we've got to lay a foundation for you to make sure that you understand. So that sense of professional community was solidified for us in some instances. And a trust that, oftentimes there's this distrust of, we're going to put this in this magical machine and something will happen and you'll have distance learning, but no one will understand. And I think through that trust factor, building trust in distance learning, and that if you do instructional design in the right way, that you can touch people and you can educate people, and, not just trying to take classroom and just, put it in this template and say it's done. It's like, no, there's a method to this. And so I think along the way we've educated people. And I think that sense of community is a huge piece. You might not have that in higher ed or K through 12, but that's a huge piece in the work environment, which is where, your graduates will end up. And so it's helpful to know that the skills they learn there in institutions will transfer, and that we'll be ready to receive them and keep them engaged. And so I think there's a larger community to think about. So, and then I like the movies on the lawn too.
No, I think that's great, Jenell. One of the things that came to mind when you were talking was, so I teach an online course, and it's online. What's going to change with that after the pandemic hit, right? Because it's an online course. They're already online. They already have the resources they need. But what changed was everything around those people. And so, all of a sudden you had someone that could get on at a certain time, but now, oh no, I'm now having to help my kid do their work, or I'm having my husband sit across from me in my office that is very loud when he talks and I can't concentrate, right? And so it's not, now we're starting to think bigger, right? It's not just the student, or it's not just, their class or that person that's working for us. It's now, holistic. There is people that have lives around them, and I think we're starting to see more of that. And a lot of times when, of course, we talk about, people getting on their video now, and so you could see them, but we're now in a lot of people's homes that people may be embarrassed to show what's behind them, or, if it's messy, or if they don't think it's as great as everybody else's, or maybe they don't have makeup on, if it's girl, I guess the guy too, then, why are we, and so I told you I loved it, why are we stopping that video? And so people turn off their videos because of different reasons. And I think we're starting to find out what those reasons are, so we can have a deeper conversation about whatever it is. If it's with the faculty member of doing an online course, or just a face-to-face Zoom session or WebEx or whatever they're using. Well, why is your video off? You're the faculty member. Well, maybe if you go, let's think about your house and where you could go that eliminates the other people around, or, so you can kind of have a different conversation than we've ever had before, right? Especially for people that aren't used to this. We are, I work, and if I'm on 3 calls, I will probably have a different background. It's not virtual backgrounds in every single call, because I just move around. Not everyone has that opportunity, right? And so I think it's our opportunity to have different conversations than we had before, and kind of going with your thing of teaching to fish and not fishing for them, I think is really important too, right? Love that.
I think a part of it is also we have to re-emphasize, and I think someone said this in the chat, we are the experts. We are truly the experts. Sometimes we model things, even what you do at maybe the first 5 minutes of a call. It is something as, excuse me, my dogs may bark, or excuse me, no makeup today. You know, those little things like that, it causes that other person to almost say, oh, have noise in my house, or no, I'm not, fancy like I normally am. And that causes them to, I don't know, it's this thing about, oh, they did it. They were, you know, maybe they were on a blank wall like this, or maybe, oh, these other people. So you see this variety, and then you get past where you are, find a decent place, and then that way it's better for you to connect and not so worried about the other part. But I really do believe that we, as the experts, we've been modeling this even for a moment. And I see your hand, Lisa, looking at all of our different backgrounds. We all have different backgrounds. We have positioned this camera. If we move our cameras one way to the left or right, oh no. But other people may need to know that it's okay that you can't move the camera. It's okay that it's a blank wall and that you don't have this fancy stuff in the back. We're modeling that by just showing them that it's important to just jump online. Go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, Charlene, I really like what you say about modeling, and I think it's so true. And so one of the things when we started moving courses online that I wanted to model is just don't be afraid of the technology. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to misspeak. And so we had live webinars, didn't have much time to prepare. And I thought, but that's good, because I want them to see me make a mistake and realize the technology world will not fall down on them. They'll be okay. They just, correct themselves and move forward. So I think sometimes even modeling when things go wrong and just how you handle it, it can be a really positive impact for faculty who haven't used the technology before, and even staff who may be a little leery of the technology. One of the other things that I wanted to point out was I had a faculty member come to me and go, okay, this course, it's a seminar course. I need to be able to read what people, read their body language, see what they're doing. And I said, well, take those interpersonal skills, use them in the online environment, have everyone show their video, look at their facial expressions. You can still do those same interpersonal skills. You can still ask questions, so the same, and one of the things that I mentioned was the same interpersonal skills you use in person can be used online. So for example, if you see someone hanging out after class, they have a question. And so ask them, and if they're quiet in class, and they're usually not, in choir. So use those interpersonal skills online too.
Great points. At this point, this has truly been a conversational webinar, and I'm looking up and we only have 4 more minutes. It's like time has just flown. It's amazing because when you first start, you always think about, are we going to be able to fill this time? But time has flown. Now, I'll ask anyone in the chat, if you have this burning question that you have for us, just about anything that we've talked about, or even things we haven't talked about, ask us. Okay, thank you. They're saying even as we were going through the seminar, Lisa's mic wasn't working, or her sound wasn't working. How she went off, fixed it, and came back. That's a part of it. Not being nervous about logging out, logging back in to get your communication right. Even though we're experts, we still have technology issues. That's one of the things that we would say, to talk about. But any burning questions, or I'll say to the panel, in these last 3 minutes, what are your final words or things that you would say to the guests?
So I loved Gay's comment in the chat where she said that she had a student that was so excited to learn how to use, I think it was Zoom. And she said, I'm trying to find it now, but she said that she was going, if she knew it was going to work, she would have put her teeth in. I thought that was great. And we do that, right? I mean, some people will pop on the screen and they're like, oh my gosh, my video's on, because on all of mine, I automatically have their video on. I don't allow them to turn it on. Now they can obviously turn it off when they get on, but they're like, oh my gosh, and they're like trying to hide. And it's like, no, it's who you are. I mean, how would you come to class? Would you get all fancy and dressed up to come to class? So I think it's, and I can't remember, someone said it, but making them human, right? Making them real. And that's the same with us as trainers or as faculty or as just colleagues. We're real. We are not fake. We need to be able to provide that, I think, even online.
One of the questions that Gay had, she asked, do all of the schools have testing centers that have been available? I would say yes and no. There may be testing centers, but available with the social distancing. There are some universities that have kept their computer labs, testing centers available and open, and they only allow so many people in a day. There's this cool thing where some institutions understood that in the evenings, people who didn't have reliable internet, they would come and sit at the parking lot of the institution. You could see the spouse and the kids playing while the other person is in their vehicle working. So that was one of the other cool things. I've heard about school districts in K through 12 sending buses in neighborhoods that didn't have internet, and that would be a way for the kids to be able to do the homework. We have gotten extremely, extremely creative. This is the part of it that I hope doesn't die, doesn't go away, that we continue. I think many of us were documenting and pulling together resources of what we've done. We're going to have to rely back on this again. So our lessons learned, one of our lessons learned is conversational webinars are more refreshing than sessions to us. Because even though I'm watching the comments and even Gay, I haven't seen Gay in a while, but it feels like we've talked and we've just, had this cool conversation. So wraps up. This brings us to the end of this Keep Connected webinar. We are going to change the format. I think we're kind of past the crisis point. Okay, we're past the crisis point, and what we're going to do is probably, instead of doing it twice a week, we'll go to once a week throughout the rest of the summer, and it's going to be something with theme with lounging, so watch for it. And then when we start in the fall, we'll probably go to once a month formats, but if there's an urgent topic, we'll go to multiple weeks throughout the month. So we are definitely, this is going to be an ongoing thing. We're not going away. We're going to be here and continuing with our TxDLA webinar. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, Rhonda, Mark, Jenell, Jerry, Lisa, Roxanne, and of course, Ken, Grouch Ken. And that's it for today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, thanks.
Hi, everyone.